So we're going to record now our class as we normally do. I don't know where Avi went. Today's class is dedicated by Avi. Thank you, Avi, for dedicating today's class. Okay, so let's start from the Chumash. We're actually catching up from last week. Last week we had the longest parsha, the longest Torah portion in the Torah, Parshas Nasai. So we're a little bit behind in the parsha and in the Tanya, but today we're going to catch up, and we're going to do, I believe it is Fridays and Shabbos's Chumash, right? We're going to do 2 days Chumash. We're going to do Friday and Shabbos's Chumash. Let me just double check that that's what we're doing. Okay, we're going to actually go back to Thursdays. I'm sorry, we're even going to go back to Thursdays Chumash, I believe, and do it from over there. Okay, so here we go. Let's do it together inside as we study together. Carol, can you hear us? Are you with us, Carol? Okay. Carol, Ira, you here? Can you hear us, Ira and Carol? Okay, hopefully you can. Harvey, can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay. Vayehi b'yoyim kalois Moshe lahakim es hamishkan. Ira's there. Okay, good. It was on the day that Moshe Rabbeinu finished erecting the tabernacle. Moshe Rabbeinu finished erecting the Mishkan. Now Rashi says the word kalois in Finnish has a similar word to kala, to a bride. And at the day, he's going back to discuss this whole period. As I was trying to give an overlook of the Chumash of the current time, and it's basically, it starts from actually the end of the book of Exodus, where in the middle of the book of Exodus, where they build a Mishkan, and then they get into the third book, Leviticus, Vayikra, where it talks about a lot of the laws regarding the sacrifices that are built in the Mishkan. And he's kind of wrapping it up to now in Parshas Nasai, in the previous week's Parsha and this week's Parsha, about what took place in the desert. And then in the following Parsha after that, in 2 weeks, he's going to talk about the Jews finally going to Israel. So this is all a lot to do with the final dedication and erecting the Mishkan and all the laws that take place with the final dedication. So we're talking about the day. A lot of these things, it was like we learned in Rashi the other day, there was a bunch of parshas taught with the day of the erection of the actual Mishkan, because that's, you have to know how to use the tabernacle, you have to know how to use the Mishkan. So we are talking about back to the day of the building of the Mishkan. Now the term Rashi says, very interesting, that's being used there, is the Jews were like a kala. So I saw one of the commentaries explain the Mishkan was like a wedding canopy, like a chuppah, and Hashem, and the Jews are basically getting married. That's what's going on here. So the day of the actual building, the erection, the setting up of the Mishkan was like the Jewish people were like a kala, Hashem is like the groom, and the Jewish people are the bride, and we're getting married sort of in the Mishkan. A very beautiful analogy. And another interesting point, Rashi says there, on the day Moshe finished setting up the Mishkan, so he says 2 interesting points. First of all, he says, why is it called that Moshe is setting up the Mishkan? We know that there were all the Jews were involved in donating to the Mishkan. There were many brilliant, sophisticated people who were involved in the construction, especially Bezalel. We even know that it was Bezalel was the one who was like the brains behind the skilled mastery of it, and he had a helper called Eliav. Remember, there was a lot of people involved. So Rashi is saying, you want to know a rule in life for who gets their name on the building? There's always a guy, not always, sometimes there's one person who's totally committed. He gives his life over to it. That's whose name is going to be named after. So Moshe Rabbeinu was total self-sacrifice for construction and building of the Mishkan, and therefore Moses gets the credit, Moses gets the name kind of on the Mishkan, even though it was actually in the actual building of it, he might not have been the central person that was involved in the building of it. But in life, the one person, who builds a construction project and he's totally committed from beginning to end, here Moshe Rabbeinu made sure that exactly what Hashem wanted and everything worked out to the T about how everything had to look, totally committed, self-sacrifice for it, that it became called kind of Moses erected the Mishkan, even though he only was the one who put it together, and many other people were much more involved and much longer perhaps in actually building the items that were there. So that's one interesting Rashi on this verse of Moshe is dedicating the Mishkan. Another interesting thing here he says, when he concludes setting it up, was that actually, as Rashi brings down, that Moses built, we learned this a while ago, I don't know if you remember, Moses would build it and take it apart. It was like Legos, basically. It was, constructible, and then you could take it apart. So Moses would set it up. I don't know, imagine those tents, when they have the circuses coming around. It takes a lot of time to build it up. Moses built it up and took it down for 7 days, one after another. Finally, on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, on the first day of the month of Nisan, exactly a year after the Jews got the mitzvah to bring the Pesach sacrifice and so on, Moses is finally, after 7 days building it, take it down, finally set it up permanently for it to stay erected and it to be up. And Rashi says after that, they learned a bunch of rules about the red heifer to cure themselves of being near any dead bodies and getting the Levites ready. And that's what would take place following that. But again, verse 1, finally, Moshe Rabbeinu was setting up the Mishkan. He anointed the items as they would do with the holy items. And he sanctified them. That's called Caleb and all their vessels. That's the Mizbeach and the altar. That's called Caleb and all the vessels that went with the altar. And he anointed them. And he sanctified them. So Moshe, we're holding back. We're discussing again that day, that special day of dedication of the Mishkan and so on. Now, what happens now, and this is where we're going to go with, we keep on bringing up the day of dedication of the Mishkan, right? We keep on talking about it. Well, today we're going to discuss a specific topic regarding the day of the dedication of the Mishkan, what took place. By Yikru v'Nesi Yisrael, on that day, the leaders, the Nesiim, the leaders of the tribes, showed up. They came to Moses, Rashi Beis Avosim, the head of the father's houses, right? We said there were 12 tribes, and there was the leaders of those father, because it went by the father. So you were either from this tribe. The leaders came, Haman Asim, and he says something very interesting, which you might have not known. Who were these people? What was the history behind the princes, the leaders of the different tribes? Who were they? And Rashi tells you something fascinating over here about who these leaders were. Rashi says, you want to know who these guys were? They were very special people. You know how by the Nazis, Lahavdil, not to compare, we had, I think it was called the Kapos. You know how they had the Jewish police who would oversee the Jews. In Egypt, they also had the Egyptians would appoint Jewish policemen, very interestingly, to oversee all the Jews that were working. But unlike, at least the rumors, what they say about the Kapos, that they were part, they hurt the Jews. These people wouldn't hit the Jews. So you know who got the beating? You know who suffered the brunt of the pain in Egypt? These Jewish people who were to oversee the other Jews working, they wouldn't beat the Jews under them. And you know who would get the beating? They would get the beating. So he's telling you that these special people who suffered the most in Egypt, they ended up becoming the leaders of the tribes of the Jewish people. So just a very interesting background. Rashi says that they were the leaders of the tribes. So these leaders they were the leaders now of the 12 tribes. They were the head of each father's house. They were the ones who, when Moses, if you remember the previous parsha we learned, Moses went around and had to count each tribe, how many there were. Remember, we had the numbers, this amount of males from 20 and up were here. So when Moses and Aaron went around counting, they would take with them the leader of the tribe. So again, these leaders who used to be beaten by the Egyptians because they were supposed to beat the Jews under them, they were the ones who would go around Moshe and Aaron and they would count the Jewish people together with them. And now what's going on in our Chumash is that they are coming and they're saying, we want to bring a gift. We want to do a donation. We want to give something. And they brought their sacrifice before Hashem. And what's their gift? They have two very interesting gifts. The first one is a means of transportation. So here's what it is. Sheish Agolis, they donated, the 12 leaders of the tribes, bring 6 wagons. Tzav with a covering, I guess there was convertible wagons and covered wagons, So wagons that have awnings or these coverings on top of them. And to pull those wagons, the engine of those wagons, which Shnei Masar Bakar were 12 cattle, 12 oxen. They had good, I guess oxen are pretty strong. So they had Ashnei and Asiyim. So each guy donated, each 2 tribes donated a shar le'achad. Everyone donated 1. Agal al Shnei and Asiyim. Each guy split. They joined in. They split. Donated a wagon, a half a wagon, right? Because there were 12 leaders of the tribes, and there was a total of 6 wagons. So 2 leaders of the tribes split the cost of a wagon. Shar le'achad, and every one of them brought 1 ox. They crew voice in Lifnei Mishkan, and they went and they brought them to Moshe in front of the tabernacle. Now, a some background. Rashi gives us some very interesting background to this donation that's being brought over here. First of all, Moses didn't want to accept it. You can't just donate whatever you want to the temple. I guess it's like today, you want to donate something. I don't know if the synagogue needs it. We got to find out. Moses says, I got to ask Hashem, you want to donate transportation? And again, the transportation will be used in order to, moving, because the temple has to move and from one to another, from one place to the next. So they brought transportation. And Moses, I got to ask God if this is what we want. And Hashem will say, yes, accept this donation from them. We want it. Now, he says some more interesting history. I believe Rashi, we shared it in our class once before, the story, but another interesting background to the story. He's saying that these leaders weren't even asked, they just came. Here, we're donating transportation vehicles to why are you guys showing up? Where do you get this idea from to donate for transportation? What's going on up here? I know we have to travel now and everything else. Why are you guys showing up? He says, because last time they were very behind. What did they say earlier, the leaders of the tribes? When Moses says, listen, guys, we need to build this building. We need to build a show. We need money. So the leaders of the tribes, I guess they were also very wealthy people, powerful people, and or they're very committed. And they said, look, let all the Jews donate whatever they want. And whatever's missing, we'll cover. We're going to fill in whatever's missing. We're going to donate it. And what happened is, if you remember from the Chumash, the Jews brought everything that was needed. And Moses actually said, stop. We don't want any more. We don't need any more material. We don't need any more money. We don't need any more material. We already have enough for construction. We're ready to go. And you know who felt very bad? The leaders of the tribes who felt terrible, because not just were they not going to fill in, they actually didn't pay any part of the sanctuary. It's a terrible thing. So as soon as the next opportunity came up, which they could bring a donation, they right away ran. So we want to be first. We're not waiting this time. Now, last time, Moses found them a special gift they could do. Each of them donated one of the gemstones that was in the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, like we learned the other time. But here they're jumping in and they're ready to donate. And they want to donate right away. We want to donate transportation. We have 6 wagons, 12 oxen in order to help carry the stuff. And Moses asked God, and God said, yes, accept it from them. And how did they use the gift of transportation? He's going to break it down for us. Very interesting. Hashem said to Moshe, take it from them. Take these transportation, take these 6 wagons and the 12 oxen. And you can use the wagons in order to serve the temple, to carry the transportation. You'll give the wagons to the Levites, each according to their own needs. You split the wagons up, transportation, correctly according to who needs what. You're going to see in a minute how it's divided. Moses takes the wagons, the 6 wagons with a bakar, and he takes the 12 oxes. And he takes them and he gives them to the Levites. And how does he break it down? Remember, there's 3 Levite families. There's Gershon, there's Kahas, and there's Merari. Gershon carried the coverings, all the material, the sheets that covered the tabernacle. Kahas carried the furniture, the ark and the menorah, and Merari carried the huge heavy beams, the huge giant pine beams that the Mishkan was built out of, that the curtain sat on top of. So he doesn't give any, as we'll see, to the tribe of Kahas, because the Kahas family carries the ark and the menorah. They're actually not allowed to be put on moving trucks. They're not allowed to be put on wagons. They have to be carried by hand. So you get no means of transportation to help you with what you need. The Gershon family are carrying the material, the coverings of the curtains. You get 2 of the 6 wagons. And the Kahas and the Merari family are counting those massive beams. You get 4. 2/3 of it. You get 4 of the 6 wagons in order to help you carry the beams. And Rabbi Chazanov just on Shabbos spoke about a very interesting talk of the Rebbe, that even 4 wagons seems like very little, right? 4 wagons to carry the beams, 6 wagons in total. I mean, they're trying to donate here for not having donated in the past. Why don't donate a couple more wagons? And he shared a very interesting talk with the Rebbe that everything Hashem does, Hashem wants us to not waste anything, to use to our full capacity. It's a very strong lesson here in life. We have to make sure, like a lot of people say, you have to live life to the fullest. You know what? It's more correct to say you have to use everything out, every talent and skill that you have out to the fullest. Don't let everything go to waste, and so on. It's part of the talk. We're not going to get into that now, but a little bit of an idea here. Anyway, so verse 7, they took 2 of the wagons, Bas Bakar, together with the 4 oxes that were pulling those 2 wagons. They gave them to the Gershon family, based on their needs, because their work was only to carry the curtains and the materials, the wool, the red ram's skin, whatever, the different kinds of leather and wool and material, the tachash skins, they loaded them up in those 2 wagons because they were allowed to be moved in transportation. The other 4 wagons. Bashmainas Bakar with the 8 oxes that pulled them. Nasan the Bnei Merari, he gave to the Merari family. Based on their work, because they were carrying those huge beams, Biadi Summer, Ben Aaron Kayin, and who oversaw that team of work was the Kayin Aaron's son, the Kayin Isamar, son of Aaron. He oversaw that whole moving, which is very, they had Levites running behind the wagons. You could imagine it was like a major transportation situation with, you can imagine you have to have a move here, the guy taking care of this and that, so on. However, the Kahas family, the Bnei Kahas, the middle of the three sons of Levi, carried the furniture, and he didn't give them any wagons. Because Alei and Bakati say they have the very holy items that must be carried by shoulder, like the ark and the table, the shulchan where the bread was on. That stuff was not allowed to be carried with transportation. It had to physically be carried by the Levites. Okay, you get and the Nisim went also now to bring a second gift. They didn't just want to give wagons transportation. Once they gave the wagon, they were really excited. They say, you know what? We also want to bring a sacrifice. We don't want to just bring. We have more gifts we want to give. We have a whole nother set of gifts. I'm going to share with you. It's very interesting here, very specific. And Rashi is going to do something which we almost never see Rashi do. Rashi is going to explain to us kind of the Kabbalistic meaning behind the numbers, how much everything weighed. And even the numerical value of the names of things, which we'll see in a minute. First, we'll give you the list of what they are, and then we'll go through. Very fascinating. Rashi quotes a scholar called Rav Moshe Hadarshan, Rav Moshe, the lecturer, the speaker, who gives you the background to the weight of everything. It's very cool. So let's first see what it is that they donated. So the Vayikrivu and the leaders of the tribes came as Chanukas Abayas to give to the dedication. We're dedicating the Mishkan. Let's go. On the same day that they started to anoint it, they go and they bring their sacrifices that they want to bring to the altar. Now, no one asked you to bring this either. They're again bringing stuff unasked. And Moses is saying, wait a second, I got to ask God. I don't know. They drop it off. They brought it to the altar and said, look, we want to bring all this stuff. And there's actually some unusual stuff we'll see that they never normally brought. And Moses says, again, we're not accepting your donation. We got to ask God. I know you want to donate some very expensive stuff. We'll ask Hashem and then we'll decide. Verse 11. So Hashem says to Moshe, here's how I'm going to accept it. But here's how I want you to do it. I don't want all 12 gifts of the 12 leaders of the tribe in one day. We're going to split it out over 12 days. Every guy gets their own day. Every leader of the tribe gets his own day. Ruvain will get his own day. Tribe of Ruvain and the tribe of Shimon and Levi and Yehuda and so on. The Krivas Karbanam will bring their daily, that sacrifice on the day. And by the way, it's still till today, it's a holiday on the first 12 days of the month of Nisan, which is before Pesach. Pesach falls out on the 14th. But we already celebrate, commemorate these sacrifices that were brought already from the first 12 days of Nisan, right? Which is the beginning of the month before Pesach starts. We're going to dedicate all the sacrifices in order. Now, there's a very interesting question that comes up here. There's a new organization in the 12 tribes. What do I mean? Till now, we always went by the age. Reuven was the oldest, Shimon was second to oldest, Levi was third to oldest, and normally it would have always been that if there were 12 tribes, everyone gets another day. How would the order be? The oldest to youngest. That's how we would incorporate it. You know what happens now? Something happened in the previous parsha. We learned that the Jews do not travel based on, very interesting, they do not travel based on their age. There was a whole new system. Yehuda and Yisachar, they were on the east side of the camp. They were next to Moses' tribe. It was a new formation, three tribes, north, south, east, west. So Moses now needs to ask a question. Do we follow the old system, which we knew the tribes were in order of age, or is there a new order in the Jewish people that we have to follow the orders designated? Very interesting question. Do we follow the order of the way they travel? And guess what the answer is? It's in the way that they travel. And you'll see that Reuven is now going to be offended because Reuven's going to say, we should, all of a sudden, other people are taking from place instead of me. We'll see what happens. So Moses asks God, he says, as Rashi says here, how do you want me to, you tell me you want one a day. God says, listen, I want it in the order of the way that they travel. All of a sudden, there's a new organization, a hierarchy kind of among the Jewish people. The tribe of Yehuda, which will, by the way, later on become the leader of the Jewish people, eventually, King David will come from him and so on, is going to now take the cake and become the first one to donate. And it was, verse 12, the one that's dedicated on the first day as Karbanai. The first one was Nachshon ben Aminadav. He was a very famous person. He was the one who jumped into the ocean first by the sea. He was married to Moses and Aaron's sister Miriam. The Mati Yehuda, he was from the tribe of Yehuda. So Moses and Aaron had a brother-in-law who was from the tribe of Yehuda, and he was the leader, he was the prince of that tribe. Now, first of all, Rashi tells us there was 10 famous, awesome things that took place on this day, on the first day of dedication of the Mishkan, right? And it was the first day of creation, according to some people. Way the Torah studies the Torah that creation started on the first day of Nisan, not the first day of Tishrei, not like we do Rosh Hashanah. But anyway, it was 10 great things that now is going to be the beginning of the dedication of the Mishkan, and the 12 tribes, leaders of the tribes, bringing the sacrifice starts on the first day of Nisan. Now, who paid for this very expensive gift that they're going to give? So Rashi tells us, based on this verse, the leader paid out of his own pocket. Mat Yehuda, he didn't go back to the treasury of the tribe of Yehuda. He actually put the money out of his own bank account, his own pocket, and paid for the gift that they were. So here you go. Here's a very interesting list. And then the next time we read the list, I'll explain to you the numbers, the unique, fascinating message behind the numbers. But let's first learn what it is. Number one, there was Karbonei Karas Kesef Achas. They donated a large, expensive silver bowl that weighed, very expensive. It weighed Shloishim Umeya Mishkala, 130 silver shekels was its weight. 130 weight of silver shekels was the first donation that these guys, all the leaders of the tribe, are going to bring. Mizrak Echad, in addition to this 130 shekel weight bowl, they also donated some kind of sprinkling basin. Maybe they would like sprinkle the different things in the temple. Also a very heavy weight silver item. It was Kesef Shivim shekel b'shekel hakodesh, 70 shekels, and not just any shekels. We're talking about the holy shekels. Remember, we learned holy shekels are double the weight of regular shekels. So 130 shekel weight of must be some kind of large silver bowl, and a 70 shekel weight. We're going to see. You're asking what's unique about 70 shekels. We'll talk about it in a moment. 70 shekel sprinkling bowl was the next thing, made out of silver. Shnei and Malem Silas, and in those two bowls that they have, they put Silas, a fine, very expensive fine flour, Bulula Bashemen mixed with oil, and that's a reminder of the mincha offering, the mincha as the meal offering that they would donate. So they bring these two large, expensive, you're going to someone's house, you're bringing them a bowl as a gift, and sometimes you put food in the bowl to bring as a gift. Here to the Mishkan, they're bringing the first day 2 silver bowls, one weighing 130 shekel of silver shekels, and one weighing 70 silver shekels. On top of that, in their gift, it's like a housewarming gift. On top of that, into the Mishkan gift, kaf achas asad azav, they brought a spoon that was weighed 10, but it was made out of gold. 10 shekel spoon weight, malek tyrus, and this one was filled with the incense, with the spices. So they had, in the silver bowls, they had the meal offering with the oil, and here they have spices inside the spoon, this 10 that was made out of pure gold, and it was with the weight of 10 shekels, 10 holy shekels. Now, something unique that's only going to happen here. Never otherwise, in all of sacrifices, in all of history, do we have a person bringing a personal incense sacrifice. We do bring it on Yom Kippur, we bring it other times, but that only comes from the public. The one time that people personally brought the incense offering was this one time, was when the leaders of the tribes brought it on their own. And this is the only time where you're going to burn the spices on the outer altar. Remember, there was 2 altars. There was the one in the courtyard, which is a huge altar, which they would burn the animal sacrifices on. And there was the inner altar, which they burnt the spices on, the incense on. This is the one time that it's also going to be burnt there, which I guess why Moses had to ask God, is this okay? They want to bring all this stuff that's not normally brought. And God says, yes, we're going to accept it. Now, besides the 2 silver bowls and the golden spoon, they also brought a bunch of animals. And we're going to learn why. We're going to learn very interesting soon why each animal recognizes. Par echad, they brought, and these are all going to be 3 animals now as a sin offering, and we'll learn soon what the sin offering is. Par echad ben bakar, 1 young bull, okay? Ayel echad, 1 ram, and keves echad, and a sheep, all ben shnasi la'ila, all within the first year, as a lot of these animals are brought within the first year. So 3 animals, okay? A bull, a ram, and a sheep. And then he brought, okay, I'm sorry, they weren't brought, they were burnt as a burnt offering, which means the animals completely burnt to Hashem. Then they brought the sin offering. In addition to the bull, the ram, and the sheep, they brought a goat, and the goat was brought as a sin offering. Now, what sin? You're not allowed to bring a sin offering for no reason unless you did a sin. Or maybe there was some chance you did a sin. So Rashi is wondering, what sin did they do that they're bringing a sin offering for? There has to be some logic. And he says, in case in earth sometimes there's a grave and nobody knows the grave's there, and the grave is built in such a way which the impurity will go up all the way and people will walk over it. We have to learn the laws of graves, that there's no, they build the graves in a way where there's some space on top of the dead body to the earth, and that stops the impurity from going up. But if the grave was built in the wrong way and the impurity went up and somebody went over it, and God forbid the person was contaminated and maybe he went into the temple unknowingly, and bad things happened, this is a sin offering for a possible chance that somebody went on a grave they didn't know and they're impure and caused major trouble within the temple and the situation. So that is a little bit about the sin offering. So far we have 3 burnt offerings, a bull, a ram, and a sheep, and now we have a goat as a sin offering. And finally, we're going to bring also the peace offering, which is just a general gift offering. We're going to be 5, 5, and 5. For the peace offerings, bakar shnayim. I'm sorry, before they bring 5 and 5. First of all, they're going to bring 2 oxen as a peace offering, 2 oxes, and we're going to see why 2 in a minute. Elim chamisha, 5 rams. Atudim chamisha, 5. So 5 rams, 5 male lambs. Kvasim b'nei shana chamisha, and 5 female lambs, all in the first year. Zakar b'nachshav minad, and this is what Nachshav and Aminadab brought. So again. Okay, so we have, let's go over the list and then we'll explain why. Which animals, just go over which animals we brought. It's so nice to see Shuki here. Hopefully we'll get a update. I think Shuki's still in Israel, right? And he's coming home tomorrow. So he'll give us an update soon, God willing, with Hashem's help. Okay, so let's just go over again. There were 3 burnt offerings that he brought. A bull, a ram, and a sheep. They were burnt completely on the temple. Then he brought a sin offering. That was a goat. Then he brought a gift offering. 2 bulls, 5 rams, 5 male lambs, and 5 female lambs, and that is what was brought. And here, for one of the only times Rashi does this, we're going to talk about what is the message behind each one. So listen carefully as I go through it. But Yom HaSheni, on the second day, Kriv Nisanam and Tzuar Nasi Yisachar. The second day went the tribe of Yisachar. Now, Rashi tells us that Reuven got upset, and Reuven said, "What's going on? First you give Yehuda, and now you give Yisachar. I'm the oldest. What happened to the oldest son, the firstborn rights over here?" Anyway, the bottom line is Yisachar got it. Why? Rashi tells us there's 2 reasons why we go from Yehuda and Yisachar. They traveled on that. They were on that eastern side of the traveling, the first ones to travel in the way that they traveled in the desert. And he says, first of all, it was his. Second of all, the second reason was it was his idea to even bring these gifts. He was like the first one to come up and says, "Guys, let's bring a gift. We're the leaders of the tribes. Let's bring like a housewarming gift to the Mishkan." So that's why he got to do it. And number 2, we learned this in Rashi a while ago, that they were tremendous Torah scholars. So therefore, their tribe got to be the one to bring the unique sacrifice next in a row. Okay, so continuing right along, what did they donate, and what did they donate, and why did they donate it? Here we go. Again, the first thing they all donated was the silver bowl that weighed 130 silver shekels. Rashi says, you want to know why that was that donations? If you take the Hebrew word silver bowl, karas kesef, and you make the numerical value out of it, you'll get 930. Okay, so it's 60 plus 20 plus 400 plus 20 plus 70 plus 100 plus 80, you'll get 930. What's so significant about the number 930? Oh, glad you asked, Rashi says. The reason is that Adam, the first man, lived for 930 years. Now, I read in one of the commentaries explain, why do we care about Adam? We're going to care about Noah. We're going to care about Adam. What do they have to do with this? And I think one of the commentators explained that the makeup of the Mishkan represented the creation of the world. Very interesting. The whole idea of this Mishkan, the tabernacle, represented, very fascinating, the makeup of the world. So in the numbers and the equivalent and the value of things are going to have the makeup of the world, which you'll see. So first of all, you got to include Adam, who's the first man that God created, who lived for 930 years. So they specifically chose karas kesef, a silver bowl, because that equals the amount of years that Adam lived. Very interesting. Next question. Why did the bowl have to weigh 130 shekel? So he tells you, Rashi tells you, 130 years old is when Adam started having children. Besides, I believe, the first Cain and Abel, which there was going to be no remnants left over from, because they will die in the flood or so on. Adam started filling up the world at 130 years old, started having a bunch of kids, and from that, the population of the world came to be. And to recognize A, Adam's age, 930 years old, and B, the year Adam started having kids that ended up populating the world, we're going to donate a bowl that equals, in Hebrew, the Adam's age, 930, and we're going to make it specifically 130 shekels weight, because that is the age that Adam started having kids. Well, very nice. What about the silver sprinkling bowl that weighed 70 shekels? Oh, I'll tell you why. Mizrak echad kesef, one silver sprinkling bowl equals tafkuf chaf, equals 520. Well, what's 520? When did God bring the flood? How old was Noah, the second man that repopulated the world? How old was he when God brought the flood? So we want to mention him. He was 500 years old. Why 520? Because 20 years is Hashem pushed off the flood another 20 years in order to make sure that, if I remember correctly from the Rashi we learned at the time, because he wanted Adam's sons to be young enough that they could be put in the boat and that their sins wouldn't count yet, and therefore 520 is recognizing specifically Noach. Well, why did the bowl that's representing Noach have to equal 70 shekels? There's an easy answer to that. We know the answer is that there's 70 tribes in the world, and representing all the tribes that came from Noach, 70 nations came from Noach, all the nations of the world, and that's why it is specifically 70. Very fascinating. All right, continue. Now we know the why specifically these two silver bowls and their weights. What about the golden spoon? Well, kaf. How does he call spoon in Hebrew? Kaf means a spoon, but guess what also it means in Hebrew, right? What does kaf mean, Shuki? Kaf means a hand, right? So the spoon is representing kaf yad, it's a hand. So the spoon is representing the Torah. The golden spoon is representing the Torah that was given by God's hand. God's hand gave us the Torah, so donating us a spoon. Now we know why the spoon weighs 10 golden shekels. Who could guess? Because it's representing the Seres Adibras, the 10 commandments. So we have a golden spoon which weighs 10 shekels, representing the 10 commandments given from the hand of God. That's why we want to call it a kaf, a spoon, which is called a hand. Also called a hand, it's representing that. Very interesting. Now, what was inside that spoon? There was ketores, there was the incense, the spices. Guess how much the numerical value of spices is? It equals 613. So if you take out the kuf, whatever Rashi gets, the kuf could be a dalid, and if you switch a kuf for a dalid, it ends up being taryag, the 630 commandments. So the 10 shekels, which represent the 10 commandments, and the spoon, which represents God hand giving the 10 commandments, and we get the 630 mitzvahs from the Torah too, and that's why the incense is inside. Very interesting. Now, why do we have parechad, ben bakar ayalachad, kevzachad, menshasel? Why they bring a burnt offering, a bull and a ram and a sheep? Well, that's an easy answer too. Those three animals are representing the forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Yaakov. If you look in the stories of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you remember Abraham ran to give a bull to his guests. Remember, he wanted to give a young bull as a gift. So it's famous that Abraham is connected to the bull. So they brought one bull. Isaac, remember, they brought instead of sacrificing Isaac, they sacrificed a ram. Isaac's connected to the ram. And Yaakov, remember, when he worked by his father-in-law Laban, sheep, he was dealing with sheep his whole life. He keeps talking about sheep. So they're bringing one bull, one ram, and one sheep corresponding to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Very interesting so far. Well, what about the goat? They're bringing as a sin offering. Very interesting reason Rashi brings here. What sin are they asking forgiveness for? When they sold Yosef, remember when the brothers sold Yosef as a slave, they took this clothes and they put it in the blood of a goat, and they gave it to Yaakov, and they told Yaakov, look, your son got killed. So to make up for the sin of the brothers selling Yosef, they're bringing a sin offering of a goat because Yosef is associated with the goat. All right, we figured all that out. Well, what about the peace offerings? So why two oxes as peace offerings? So those are representing Moses and Aaron, who brought peace between the Jewish people and their Father in heaven. So that's why they brought two bulls representing Moses and Aaron. They're thanking God for Moses and Aaron. Well, what about five rams, 5 male lambs and 5 female lambs? So Rashi tells us, first of all, why do we bring 3 of each, 3 different kinds of animals? Because they're representing the 3 groups of Jews, Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. Like we have 3 matzahs on Pesach, representing Kohen and Yisrael. Another thing is the Torah is made up of 3 orders of books: the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Ksuvim, and the writings. So that's why there's 3 different kinds. Why 5 of each? So one answer is because the 5 books of the Torah. And another answer is representing the 5 on each tablets. Each of the first 5 is the 5 books of the Torah. The next 5 and the next 5, the 2 other 5s, is for the five commandments on each of the tablets that are there. And that is till here as Ramosha Darshan. Yom HaShlishi. So then we move on to the third day. So far we have Yisachar and we already had Yehuda. On the third day, the tribe of Zvulun brought their animal. And it's going to now just go through the list. We'll go through quickly, verse 25, and it just recounts, as a lot of commentaries ask, to tribe number 3. He brought the same and lists the whole gift, housewarming, Mishkan warming gift that they brought. And then tribe number 4, and he relists the whole list. And the famous question on the Parshas, and this is the longest Parsha in Torah, why do you have to recount? Everyone brought the same exact gift. And he says that to show you that everyone's important, that every single leader of the tribe is important. So you can read the Chumash inside. We don't need to go through, I guess, this whole list of everyone bringing the same thing. It continues from Thursday's Chumash to Friday's Chumash and lists the leaders of the tribes in every tribe and recounts. They all brought the silver bowl and they brought the cat, the bull, and whatever, all the stuff that they brought, and they go through the whole list of the next day's Chumash. So we're going to finish today with the last section of Chumash, which is the final dedication and the sum of all the numbers. Verse Pei Daled 84. This is the dedication of the Chanukah Hamizbeach. This is the dedication of the altar. On the day that they anointed the altar. Me'ez Nisi Yisrael, from the leaders, the first sacrifices they're bringing are the leaders' sacrifices that they brought. Karas Kesef, Shtei Mesri, there was a total now of 12 silver bowls. Mizrake Kesef, Shtei Mesri, 12 sprinkling bowls, because each guy brought a sprinkling bowl. Kapes, Shnei Masar, Kapes Zahav, Shtei Mesri, they brought 12 golden spoons too. Shleishim Umeya, Hakara Achas, 130 was the weight of one silver bowl. Remember, the silver bowl was 130 shekels. Achas Kesef Shivim Hamizrak Echad, and the sprinkling bowl was 70 shekels. So, Kol Kesef Akelim, if you want to take all the silver, so each guy brought 130 bowl of shekels, silver shekels plus a 70, so that equals 200. How much is 200 times 12? Equal a total of 2,400 shekels. So if you want to take all the bowls and they put it on a scale and you weigh them all together, you'd end up with each 2,400 silver shekels. Rashi's telling us this verse is a little bit superfluous. He wants to tell you 2 points. Number one, he wants to tell you that they all used the shekel weight, the holy shekel weight for all the donations that were given in shekels. Use the weight of a holy shekel, which we learned in the past, is heavier, is double the weight of a regular shekel. Number two, he wants to tell you that the weight was so precise that if you'd weigh one bowl by itself, you'd get 130 or 70, depending on which bowl you're weighing. If you took all the bowls together and then weighed them, you'd get exactly times 12 that amount. So basically the weight was exact, weighing them all as one or all together, the weights were perfect and therefore would come out to the exactly right weight number. Copies of Shtei Mesrei, there were 12 total silver golden spoons. Leis Ketaris that were full of the spices, the incense. Asara, Hakaf, B'Shekel Kodesh, each of them weighing 10 shekels. Because the Havak Kaperis Eser Mamea, so if you totaled it up, you get 120, because each guy 120 golden shekels if you measured all the spoons together. Kala Bakar La'oila, all the burnt offering, if you want to total the number of all the burnt offerings that were offered, each guy brought one, so you bring a total of Shnei Masar Parim, where there was a total of 12 bulls. Elim Shnei Masar, there was a total of 12 rams. Kvasim Shnei Masar, and a total of 12 sheep. Right? Each one brought one representing each of the forefathers, so you have 12, 12, and 12 because they brought one of each. And also the sin offering to make up for the sale of Yosef was also a total of 12. And if you want, remember they each brought 2 bulls as the peace offering, so there's going to be a total of 24. Elim Shishim, and then each guy brought 5 rams, 5 sheep, male sheep, and 5 female sheep. So then you're going to times that by 12, you'll get 60 total rams. Shisha Tudim, Shishim Kvasim, 60 male lambs, 60 female lambs. Huge amount of sacrifices are brought on each altogether. This is the dedication of the altar. After they did it. Now, one fascinating part. Whenever Moses would come to the tent of meeting, he talks about how God would speak to him. To speak to him. Whenever Moses would come, Yishmas call Medabre, Moses would hear the voice of Hashem. How? He says very fascinating. He's explaining the system of how Moses would hear God talk. Rashi explains that God's voice came down from heaven into the Holy of Holies on top of the the ark, where the tablets were, there was a cherubs, miyalak a on top of that cover on the ark, the cherubs. The voice would go in between the two cherubs on top of the ark. And they would speak to Moshe. So this Rashi says it wasn't a quiet voice, it was a very powerful voice, the same powerful as when God spoke to all the Jews at Mount Sinai. So this massive voice would come in, but then it would make a short stop. Magically, though, with such a powerful voice, you only hear it. Moses would come in, and the voice would travel down to the Holy of Holies, and from the Holy of Holies, it would go into the tabernacle. Even Aaron wouldn't hear this voice; just Moses would hear this voice when he would come to the door of the tent of the meeting, right to the front into the Mishkan, but outside the Mishkan, the sound, it was soundproof magically that they wouldn't hear it outside the tent of meeting. Very interesting chumash. That is the end of today's